I thought I knew my wife after years of marriage and 2 kids. I was wrong. On our 18th anniversary, while she texted me about being stuck at work, I discovered she was dining with another man. But that was just the beginning. My best friend's betrayal cut deeper, and the DNA test results would shatter everything I believed about my family. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones hiding the darkest secrets. My name is Alistair Thorne. I'm 44 years old. And until 3 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. Regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company, decent house in suburban Phoenix, 2 kids, and what I believed was a solid marriage. Turns out I was living in a fantasy. It was our 18th wedding anniversary. I had planned everything perfectly. Dinner reservations at La Trattoria, the Italian place where we had our first date. I'd arranged for Miles Harrington, my best friend since college, to watch Julian and little Finn for the evening. I got home at 6:30, earlier than usual. I walked into our kitchen expecting to find Eleanor getting ready. Instead, I found 17-year-old Julian heating up leftover pizza and 2-year-old Finn in his high chair with Cheerios scattered everywhere. "Where's your mother?" I asked, loosening my tie. Julian looked up from the microwave, his expression carefully neutral. "She said she had to work late. Some emergency at the office." The way he said emergency told me he didn't buy it either. I called Eleanor straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. Then I sent a text. "Hey babe, home early for our anniversary. Where are you?" 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Stuck at work. Crisis with a Morrison account. So sorry, honey. Rain check." I stare at that message for a full minute. The Morrison account had been closed for 6 months. I knew because I'd help her celebrate landing a replacement client back in March. But here's the thing about being married to someone for 5 years. You start to notice when their lies get lazy. I typed back, "No worries. Take your time." But I wasn't taking my time. I was done taking my time. Done making excuses. Done pretending. I walked upstairs to our bedroom, pulled out my overnight bag, and started packing. Julian appeared in the doorway. "Dad, what are you doing?" I looked at my son, this young man who is old enough to understand that sometimes adults make choices that break everything apart. "I'm leaving for a few days, son. You'll be okay with your mom." His face went pale. Is this about her working late again? Smart kid. Too smart. I zipped up the bag and put my hand on his shoulder. "Take care of your brother." "All right. And call me if you need anything." I kissed Finn goodbye, grabbed my keys, and walked out. As I backed out of the driveway, I could see Julian watching from the front window, holding his baby brother. I spent the night at a Holiday Inn Express about 20 minutes from home. Not glamorous, but I had clean sheets and nobody asking me where I'd been. I ordered room service, watched some mindless TV, and tried not to think about what Eleanor was doing or who she was doing it with. My phone stayed silent all evening. No calls, no texts, no desperate voicemails asking where I was. That told me everything I needed to know about where her priorities lay. The next morning, I was sitting in the hotel restaurant picking scrambled eggs when my phone exploded. 7 missed calls from Eleanor, 3 from Julian, and a string of increasingly frantic text messages. The first one came in at 6:47 a.m. "Alistair, where are you? Your side of the bed wasn't slept in." Then 7:15 a.m. "This isn't funny. Call me back." 7:22 a.m. Julian said, "You packed a bag. What is going on?" By 7:45 a.m., the panic was bleeding through her words. "Please call me. I'm scared. Did something happen to you?" I almost laughed at that last one. Something that happened to me, Eleanor. I woke up. I finished my coffee and drove to Miles's house. He lived in a bachelor pad across town, still single at 44 and proud of it. He answered the door in his bathrobe, took one look at my face, and stepped aside without a word. "Coffee?" Miles asked, heading to his kitchen. "Make it strong," I said, dropping my bag on his couch. Miles had known me since college. He could read my moods better than my wife could, which was saying something after 18 years of marriage. He poured 2 mugs and sat across from me. So Miles said, "Anniversary didn't go as planned." I pulled out my phone and showed him Eleanor's text about the Morrison account. Miles's eyebrows shot up. "Morrison's been closed for months," he said. "I remember you celebrating when she landed the replacement." "Exactly." I took a sip of coffee. "She's been lying to me, Miles." I don't know for how long, but it's been going on. My phone rang. Eleanor's name flashed on the screen. Miles nodded toward it. You going to answer that? I let it ring through to voicemail. Then I played on speaker. Eleanor's voice was shaky, higher pitched than usual. Alistair, please call me back. I don't understand what's happening. Julian won't tell me what you said to him, and I'm terrified something's wrong. Whatever I did, we can talk about it. Just please come home. Miles whistled low. She sounds genuinely scared. She should be, I said. Her whole house of cards is about to come down. The phone rang again immediately. This time was Julian. Dad, my son's voice was tight with worry. Mom's freaking out. She's been calling everyone trying to find you. She even called Grandma asking if you went there. I could hear Eleanor in the background, her voice sharp and demanding. Give me the phone, Julian. Let me talk to him. Dad, she wants to talk to you, Julian said. Tell your mother I'm fine. I'm safe, and I'll be in touch when I'm ready. But Dad, take care, Finn. Son, I'll call you later. I hung up and turned off my phone. Miles was watching me with something that looked like respect. You're really doing this, he said. You're walking away. I'm not walking away. I corrected him. I'm walking toward the truth. There's a difference. Miles leaned back in his chair. What do you need from me? That's why Miles was my best friend. No judgment. No lectures about working things out or thinking of the kids. Just a simple question about how he could help. I need time to think, I said, and I need to figure out what she's really been up to. You think she's cheating? I met his eyes. I think she's been cheating for a while. And I think you and I both know it. 3 days into my stay at Miles's place, I got a call that changed everything. It was Julian, and his voice was different. Older somehow, like he'd aged years in the span of a few days. Dad, I need to see you, my son said. Can you meet me somewhere? Without Mom knowing, I met him at a coffee shop downtown far from our neighborhood. Julian walked in looking like he hadn't slept in days. He slumped into the chair across from me, his hands shaking slightly as he wrapped them around his coffee cup. I know about Mom, he said without preamble. I've known for months. My stomach dropped. What do you mean, you know? Julian looked up at me, and I saw myself in his eyes. The same hurt, the same betrayal. I saw her with him. This guy named Marcus Dubois. He works for one of the companies that supplies your pharmaceutical company. I looked him up. The coffee in my mouth turned bitter. Marcus Dubois. I knew that name. He was a sales rep for one of our major suppliers. Came to our quarterly meetings. Smooth talker, expensive suits, the kind of guy who made everything look effortless. When I managed to ask, first time was back in February. I was supposed to be at basketball practice, but coach canceled last minute. I came home and saw his car in our driveway. Silver BMW. Julian's voice was flat. Matter of fact, Mom didn't know I was there. I went around back and could see them through the kitchen window. My hands clenched into fists under the table. What were they doing? Kissing, touching, right there on our kitchen counter where we eat breakfast every morning. Julian's voice broke slightly. I threw up in the bushes and left. Didn't come home until after 10 that night. I reached across the table and squeezed my son's shoulder. Why didn't you tell me? I tried. Remember when I asked if you and Mom were getting divorced? You said everything was fine. That married couples go through rough patches. He wiped his eyes with his sleeve. I thought maybe you already knew and were handling it. The guilt hit me like a physical blow. My 17-year-old son had been carrying this burden for months while I walked around oblivious. There's more, Dad. Julian's voice dropped to a whisper. I don't think Finn is your son. The world stopped spinning. What? The timing doesn't add up. Remember when Mom went to that conference in San Diego? The one where she was gone for a week when I was a freshman. I remembered. Eleanor had been excited about some accounting seminar. She'd come back glowing. Said it was exactly what she needed to feel like herself again. That was right around when she got pregnant with Finn and Dad. Julian pulled out his phone, showed me a photo he'd somehow taken without being seen. It was Marcus Dubois holding Finn at a park. Both of them laughing. Look at them together. The resemblance was undeniable. The same dark eyes, the same dimpled chin that I convinced myself Finn had inherited from Eleanor's side of the family. She brings him around Finn sometimes, Julian continued. Tells me he's just a work friend who likes kids. But the way he looks at Finn, the way Finn responds to him, it's not like a stranger. Dad, I stared at the photo. my world reshaping itself around this new terrible truth. My wife hadn't just been cheating on me. She'd been living a double life, raising another man's child under my roof, letting me fall in love with a boy who might never truly be mine. "I'm sorry, Dad," Julian whispered. "I should have told you sooner." I looked at my brave, broken son and felt something inside me harden into steel. "No, son. You did nothing wrong. This is on her." After Julian left, I sat in that coffee shop for another hour, staring at the photo on his phone that he'd transferred to mine, Marcus Dubois, and the boy I've been calling my son, looking like father and son in a way that Finn and I never had. Miles found me there an hour later. One look at my face, and he slid into a Julian's empty chair. "What happened?" he asked. I showed him the photo, told him everything Julian had said. Miles's expression grew darker with every word. "That piece of garbage," Miles muttered. "Using your house, your family. There's something else." I said, "I need to know for sure about Finn. I need a paternity test." Miles nodded grimly. "I know a guy who can do a discreet. Hair samples, saliva swabs. Eleanor never has to know until you're ready. And I need evidence. Real evidence. If this goes to court, if there's a custody battle, I need documentation of everything. Private investigator. Yeah, someone who can follow her, photograph her meetings with Dubois. I want timestamps, locations, everything." I felt my jaw clench. If she wants to play games, we're going to play by my rules. Miles leaned forward. "What about the kids? Julian's already torn up about this. And if Finn isn't yours, Finn is my son regardless of biology," I said firmly. "I've been his father for 2 years. That doesn't change. But Eleanor needs to face consequences for what she's done to this family." My phone buzzed. Another text from Eleanor. "It's been 3 days, Alistair. The boys need their father. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it." I showed Miles the message. He snorted. "She still thinks she can manipulate her way out of this." "Not anymore." I stood up, feeling more decisive than I had in months. "I'm going home tonight." "You sure about that?" "I'm not going home to reconcile, Miles. I'm going home to confront her. She needs to know that I know. And she needs to understand that her little fantasy is over." Miles grinned. The first real smile I'd seen from him in days. "You want backup?" "No. This is something I need to do myself." I pocketed my phone. "But keep your phone on. If things get ugly, I might need that private investigator sooner than we planned." "You got it, brother." I drove home slowly, rehearsing what I was going to say. The house looked the same from the outside, but everything felt different now. I wasn't coming home to my family. I was walking into enemy territory. Eleanor's car was in the driveway. The silver BMW was nowhere to be seen, but I wouldn't have expected it to be. She was too smart for that kind of obvious mistake. I used my key and walked in. Eleanor was in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner. She turned when she heard me, and her face lit up with relief and something that might have been genuine joy. "Alistair, thank God you're home. I was so worried." "We need to talk," I said, cutting her off. "And this time, you're going to tell me the truth." Her smile faltered. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Marcus Dubois. I mean, the Morrison account that's been closed for 6 months. I mean, our son who might not actually be her son." The color drained from her face. For the first time in 18 years, Eleanor had nothing to say. Eleanor's face went through a series of expressions in the span of 3 seconds. Shock, fear, calculation, and finally defiance. "Alistair, I can explain everything," she said, but her voice wavered. "Can you explain Marcus Dubois?" I asked, walking into the living room where she stood frozen. "Can you explain why you've been lying about closed accounts?" "How do you?" She stopped herself, realizing she was about to admit guilt. "How do I know? Does it matter? What matters is that our son has been carrying your secret for months because he didn't want to hurt me." Eleanor's eyes widened. "Julian told you." "Julian shouldn't have had to tell me anything. You should have had the decency to end our marriage before starting another relationship." She started to cry then. The practiced tears of someone who's used emotion as a weapon her whole life. It didn't mean anything. Marcus was just he made me feel attractive again. After Finn, I felt so ugly, so tired all the time. "Don't you dare blame our son for your choices." "I'm not blaming him." Eleanor snapped, her mask slipping. I'm trying to explain why I needed someone who made me feel like a woman instead of just a mother and a housewife. So, you brought him into our home, into our kitchen, where our children could see you. Her face went pale. She realized how much I actually knew. Alistair, please. It's over with him. It has been for weeks. I chose you. I chose our family. You chose me. I laughed. But there was no humor in it. When exactly did you choose me, Eleanor? Before or after you realized Marcus wasn't going to leave his wife for you? She flinched like I'd slapped her. That's what this is really about, isn't it? He's married. He was never going to give you more than stolen afternoons and lies. That's not true. Then call him right now. Tell him you've left me and see how fast he disappears. Eleanor looked at her phone, then back at me. We both knew she wouldn't make that call because we both knew what the answer would be. I want a paternity test for Finn, I said quietly. Her face crumpled completely. Alistair, don't. Please don't do this. So, there's a chance he's not mine. He's your son regardless of biology. You've raised him. You love him, and I always will, but I deserve to know the truth about my own life. The next morning, I met Miles at his house to update him on the confrontation. He listened to everything with a grim expression, occasionally shaking his head in disgust. She admitted it then, Miles asked. Not in so many words, but yes. And she didn't deny the paternity question either. Miles stood up and walked through his kitchen window. There's something else we need to discuss, Alistair. Something in his tone made me look up. What? He turned around, and I saw guilt written across his face. About 6 months ago, Eleanor came to me. She was upset. Said you two were having problems. My stomach tightened. What kind of problems? She said you're distant, working too much, that she felt lonely. Miles ran his hand through his hair. She was crying, vulnerable. And I made a mistake. The world tilted. Sideways. What kind of mistake? We slept together once. It was right after you got that promotion when you were traveling more for work. I stood up slowly, every muscle in my body tensing. You slept with my wife, Miles. I'm sorry. I was drunk. She was drunk. It just happened. It just happened. I repeated his words, tasting their bitterness. My best friend and my wife just happened to betray me. It meant nothing. I regretted it immediately. I told her it could never happen again. But you never told me. Miles' silence was answer enough. That's why you didn't say anything about her lies, isn't it? You knew something was going on because you were part of it. Alistair, please. Our friendship died the night you touched my wife. I headed for the door. Where are you going? I turned back to look at the man I consider brother. I'm going to get that paternity test for both my sons. Miles's face went white. Both? Yeah, Miles. Both. 2 weeks later, I sat in Dr. Muller's office holding 2 manila envelopes that would either confirm my worst fears or give me something to hold on to. The paternity tests have been processed faster than expected, and I'd asked to receive the results in person rather than over the phone. Are you ready for this, Mr. Thorne? Dr. Muller asked gently. I nodded, though I wasn't sure anyone could be ready for news like this. She handed me the first envelope. This is for Julian. My hand shook slightly as I opened it. The words swam on the page for a moment before coming into focus. Probability of paternity 99.97%. Relief flooded through me. Julian was mine biologically and in every way that mattered. The second envelope felt heavier somehow. Dr. Muller watched my face carefully as I tore it open. Probability of paternity 0%. The words hit me like a physical blow. Finn, the little boy who called me daddy, who reached for me when he had nightmares, who laughed at my silly faces, wasn't my biological son. I'm sorry, Dr. Muller said softly. I know this must be difficult. I stared at the paper, feeling my world reshape itself around this new reality. The other test I requested. She handed me a third envelope with Miles's name on it. My hands were steadier now, like shock had given way to cold determination. Probability of paternity 99.94%. Miles was Finn's father. My best friend had not only slept with my wife, he fathered the child I've been raising as my own for 2 years. What happens now? I asked. That depends on what you want to do with this information. Legally, you're still listed as the father on Finn's birth certificate. You have parental rights regardless of biology. I folded the papers and put them in my jacket pocket. I want to keep those rights. He's my son in every way that matters. When I got back to my hotel room, I called my lawyer, Victoria Shaw. She'd been recommended by a colleague and came with a reputation for being ruthless in family court. I need to discuss custody arrangements. I told her, and I need to understand my rights regarding a child who isn't biologically mine. Victoria listened to the whole story without interruption. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. This is going to be complicated, she said. Finally, your wife committed adultery, but she can still argue for joint custody. However, the fact that she allowed you to believe Finn was your son while knowing he might not be could work in our favor. What about Miles? Does he have any rights? Not unless he wants to establish paternity legally, which would mean admitting to adultery and potentially facing a lawsuit from you. Victoria paused. Do you think he'll try to claim a child? I thought about Miles's guilty face when he confessed. The way he'd avoided being alone with Finn for months. No, he's too much of a coward. Good. That makes things simpler. We'll file for divorce, citing adultery and fraud. We'll also petition for primary custody of both children based on your wife's history of deception and poor judgment in bringing multiple men around the children. What are my chances with the evidence you've gathered? Very good. Courts don't like it when one parent lies about paternity, especially when children are involved. That evening, I drove to my house to see the boys. Eleanor met me at the door, her eyes red from crying. Did you get them? She asked quietly. I got them. And I looked past her to where Finn was playing with blocks on the living room floor. Julian is my son. Finn isn't. Eleanor's face crumpled. Alistair, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen, but it did happen. And now we have to deal with the consequences. I walked past her into the living room where both boys were watching TV. But Eleanor, regardless of what those papers say, I'm still his father. I'm still going to fight for custody of both of them. Her eyes widened. You can't take them away from me. Watch me. The next morning, I was having breakfast at a diner downtown when my phone rang. It was Julian, and he sounded terrified. Dad, you need to come home right now. He said, Mom's gone crazy. She's packing suitcases and saying we're going to stay with Grandma and Grandpa for a while. My blood ran cold. Eleanor's parents lived in Oregon over 1,000 miles away. If she took the boys there, it would complicate custody arrangements significantly. Where is she now? I asked, already heading for my car upstairs, throwing clothes into bags. She's crying and talking to herself. Dad, I'm scared. Listen to me, son. Do not let her take you or Finn anywhere. If she tries to leave with you, call 911 immediately. What if she won't listen to me? Then you make sure she understands that you know what's going on. Tell her you'll testify in court about what you've seen. That should stop her. I broke every speed limit getting to the house. Eleanor's car was in the driveway, engine running with 2 large suitcases in the back seat. Through the front window, I could see her struggling with a cry Finn while Julian stood nearby with his arms crossed. I burst through the front door. What do you think you're doing? Eleanor spun around, Finn still in her arms. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared. She looked like someone who'd spent the night staring at the ceiling, realizing her world was falling apart. I'm taking my children to my parents' house, she said, trying to sound defiant. They need stability while we figure this out. Your children? Finn isn't even yours biologically, and you know it. He's more mine than yours, she snapped. I carried him for 9 months. I gave birth to him, and you let me believe he was my son for 2 years while you knew he wasn't. Julian stepped forward. Mom, I'm not going anywhere with you. Eleanor turned to him with desperation in her eyes. Julian, honey, you don't understand. Your father is trying to take you away from me. No, Mom. You're trying to take us away from Dad. Julian's voice was steady, mature beyond his years, and I won't let you do it. You're 17 years old. You don't get to make that decision. Actually, he does. I said at his age, the court will listen to his preference, and I'm guessing he's going to choose to stay with the parent who didn't lie to him for months. Eleanor's face went pale. She set Finn down, and he immediately ran to me, wrapping his small arms around my legs. Daddy, he said happily, oblivious to the tension in the room. I picked him up, feeling my heart break and heal at the same time. Hey buddy, are you okay? Mommy was crying, he said looking confused. She said we had to go on a trip. We're not going anywhere, son. I looked at Eleanor over Finn's head. And neither are you. If you try to leave the state with these children, I'll have the police stop you before you reach the city limits. You can't keep me from my own children. Watch me, I said, echoing my words from the night before. I've already filed for emergency custody. As of this morning, you can't take these boys anywhere without my permission. The fight went out of her then. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. I never meant for her to go this far, she whispered. I just wanted to feel wanted again. I looked at this woman I'd once loved. This mother of the child I'd raised as my own and felt nothing but pity. The damage is done, Eleanor. Now we have to figure out how to minimize the hurt to these boys. 6 weeks later, I sat in a courtroom that smelled like old wood and broken promises, watching Judge Eleanor Beaumont review the evidence my lawyer had presented. Eleanor sat at the opposite table with her attorney, Ms. Moreau, looking smaller than I had ever seen her. The hearing had been brutal, but necessary. Victoria had presented everything methodically. The adultery, the lies about paternity, the attempted kidnapping, Eleanor's pattern of bringing multiple men around the children. The judge had listened without expression, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Mr. Thorne, Judge Beaumont said, you're seeking primary custody of both children, including one who isn't your biological son? Yes, Your Honor. I've been Finn's father for 2 years. Biology doesn't change that. And you understand the financial implications. Child support for a non-biological child. I understand completely. That little boy calls me daddy. I won't abandon him because of his mother's choices. The judge turned to Eleanor's attorney. Ms. Moreau, does your client wish to make a statement? Eleanor stood up slowly. She looked tired, defeated. Your Honor, I know I made terrible mistakes. I hurt my family, betray my husband's trust, but I love my children. They need their mother. Mrs. Thorne, you allowed your husband to raise another man's child under false pretenses. You brought multiple affair partners around your minor children. You attempted to flee the jurisdiction with both children. How do you reconcile these actions with your claim to love them? Eleanor's voice broke. I can't. I was selfish and stupid, but I want to make it right. Judge Beaumont looked back at me. Mr. Thorne, what kind of visitation are you willing to allow? I stood up. Supervised visits twice a week for now, Your Honor. If she can prove she's stable and puts the children's needs first, we can discuss expanding that. Very reasonable. The judge made some notes. I'm awarding primary custody to Mr. Thorne. Mrs. Thorne will have supervised visitation every Wednesday evening and Saturday afternoon. Child support will be determined separately. Eleanor collapsed in her chair, crying silently. I felt no satisfaction in her pain, just relief that my boys would be safe. Outside the courthouse, Victoria shook my hand. You handled yourself well in there. What happens next? You rebuild your life, and you make sure those boys know they're loved. That evening, I picked up Julian and Finn from my mother's house where they've been staying during the hearing. Julian understood what had happened, but Finn just seemed happy to see me. Daddy, are we going home? Finn asked as I buckled him into his car seat. We're good at our new home, buddy. Just you, me, and Julian. What about Mommy? I met Julian's eyes in the rearview mirror. He nodded slightly, understanding that this conversation was going to happen many more times. Mommy made some mistakes, Finn, but she still loves you. You'll see her soon. Okay, Daddy. Sometimes the most profound moments are the simplest ones. 1 year later, I stood in the kitchen of our new house, watching Julian help Finn with his blocks while breakfast cooked on the stove. It was a smaller place than our old house, but it was ours. No ghosts, no painful memories, just the 3 of us building something new. Julian was thriving. His grades had improved dramatically once the stress of his mother's secret was lifted. He'd gotten early admission to Arizona State and would start in the fall. Finn had adjusted better than I'd expected. He still asked about Mommy sometimes, but he'd stopped looking for her to come home. Eleanor had been consistent with her supervised visits for the past 6 months. She was seeing a therapist, had gotten a new job, and seemed to be trying to become a better person. I hoped she succeeded for the boys' sake more than hers. Miles had disappeared from our lives. Completely. I heard through mutual friends that he'd moved to California. Probably couldn't live with the guilt of knowing Finn was his son, while watching me raise him. Good riddance. My phone rang. It was Victoria Shaw. Alistair, I have some news. Eleanor's attorney filed a petition to modify the custody arrangement. My stomach clenched. What kind of modification? She wants unsupervised overnight visits. Says she's been compliant with all court orders and completed anger management and therapy. I looked at my boys playing peacefully in the morning sun streaming through her kitchen window. What do you think? I think she's been following the rules. The boys seem to enjoy their visits with her. It might be time to give her a chance to prove herself. After Victoria hung up, I sat down with Julian. He was 18 now, technically an adult, but still my son who needed guidance. Your mom wants overnight visits. I told him, how do you feel about that? Julian was quiet for a moment. She seems different when we see her now. Sadder, but also more. Real like she's not pretending anymore. Do you think she's changed? I think she's trying to change. And maybe trying is enough for now. That weekend, I met Eleanor at a coffee shop to discuss the arrangement. She looked healthier than she had in the courthouse a year ago. There was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Humility. I know I don't deserve another chance, she said, but I want to try to be the mother they deserve. This isn't about what you deserve, Eleanor. It's about what's best for Julian and Finn. I understand that now. I know I'll probably never forgive myself for what I put them through. What I put you through. I studied her face, looking for the manipulation I'd grown so used to. Instead, I saw genuine remorse. If I agree to this, there are rules. No men around the boys unless you've been dating someone seriously for at least 6 months, and I've met him first. No lies about anything ever. And if you slip back into your old patterns, this ends immediately. I agree to everything. One more thing I want you to explain to Finn when he's old enough to understand that I'm not his biological father, but that I chose to be his dad anyway. Tears filled her eyes. Alistair, you didn't have to. Yes, I did. Because that's what fathers do. We show up even when it's hard. 3 months later, Finn came back from his first overnight visit with his mother chattering about the pancakes she'd made him for breakfast. He seemed happy, secure. That was all that mattered. I never remarried. Maybe someday I'll find someone who deserves the trust that Eleanor destroyed. But for now, I'm content being a father to 2 boys who needed me to be their hero. And sometimes being someone's hero is enough.